Hey guys, welcome to the video on economics. This is the only video we're going to do for ancient China economics because there's not too much to it. It's kind of like when we did Mesopotamia and we did economics for Mesopotamia. There wasn't a whole lot that went with it. Same thing here, not a whole lot that goes in ancient Chinese economics. We'll spend more time in social structure here in our next two videos. But for here today, we're going to look at the economics of ancient China. I have my pen on this time. Hopefully I'll be able to remember to do everything perfectly fine. So let's look at economics. Remember, economics has to do with money. Okay, so anytime we talk about money, we're talking about the economics or the way that the society runs, the way that money is taken care of in the society. So the economy for ancient China was mainly agricultural. It's mainly agriculture, which means most people made their living by farming. Wow, my cultural here got a little weird. Why am I? You got a little weird there. So the way the money was made mainly in ancient China was by agriculture or farming. Now, we talked about this, or we haven't talked about it quite yet. We're going to talk about it more here when we get into social structure. For some reason, it doesn't let me move. So when we talk about, why doesn't this let me move? Give me just a second here. I'm going to lock horizontal. See if it'll let me move it now. There we go. I don't know why it's being weird. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is really annoying. Okay, there we go. That was annoying. Okay, so most people, we'll talk about this more when we get into social structure here in a minute, but most did not own their land, but instead rented it from a richer family. So most people, farmers, didn't actually own the land that they lived on. They rented that land. This was known as sharecropping. And we see sharecropping pop up in a lot of other places in history. This was a very common thing to do in the time of the Great Depression because a lot of African Americans couldn't afford to own land, but they would rent land from someone, normally a white family, and they would then, as the result, in order to be able to live on that land, farmers worked the land in exchange for a portion of what was grown. So in exchange for a portion of what was grown, the farmers were able to work the land and then keep part of it for themselves too. It was a way that they were able to feed their families while still having work to do. Now we're going to see that though this sounds odd and sounds like it wouldn't be a good thing for some people, we're going to see that this is actually a very common thing that makes them move up the social structure ladder, so to speak. Northern China, and so China is a big area as we've seen in maps. So we know China is huge. So because of that, it kind of has different climates like the United States does. If you go down south, it's much warmer than it is up north. So in northern China, the farmers grew wheat and a grain called millet. And I'll show you a picture of millet here in a minute. In southern China, where it was wetter and warmer, farmers grew rice. And if you've ever seen rice fields are very common in warm, wet environments because they need a lot of warm temperatures and they need a lot of rain. And I'm going to show you a picture here in a minute. Let me erase this here of a rice farm. Rice farms are also very common in a lot of Asian countries like Vietnam, for example. So here we have this picture that is, so I can get a pointer here. I have a pointer somewhere. So over here, I'm going to change the color of my pointer. Let's do a blue arrow. Okay, so this one here that I'm currently pointing to, this is millet. It kind of looks like corn if you look at it in like a big group like sweet corn. But down here you can see how small it is in comparison to like what corn would be. They're very, very small kernels. This is a rice field. This is what you're seeing here. And you can see they're submerged underwater. That's very common and is good for the rice, actually. If you look here in the United States, like here in Ohio, if you see a field that's underwater, it's not a good thing. But in rice field, it's a very good thing. It's very common. It's necessary. Rice kind of looks like this when it's on plant, which I think is really cool too. It kind of has like a wheat-like texture to it, or like design to it. And so we see that it's underwater here. So trade became much more common after the creation of the Silk Road, which is what your homework is going to be tonight, is going to be an article on the Silk Road. And we've talked about the Silk Road a little bit before. We talked about the Silk Road when we looked at achievements. And so we're going to look at it here again in the Silk Road. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it here. We're going to look at it just briefly in an article that you're reading today. So the Silk Road spans all across. The red is land paths, the blue is water paths by boat, but expanded this huge area across Asia and even into Europe, and is what prompted trade, that prompted a lot of these ancient civilizations to grow and become more connected through trade, which I think is really cool. You're going to learn more about the Silk Road in 7th grade, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it right now. But I wanted to definitely introduce it to you. So the most common products that the ancient Chinese traded were silk, tea, porcelain, and spices. There were other things that the ancient Chinese traded as well. These are just a few of them, the more common ones. Silk especially, hence why it's called the Silk Road. They traded for things like horses, gold, silver, carpets, glass, steel, and many other things. Again, the list goes on and on and on. Now, with the Silk Road, they had to be careful not to travel with too many things because it was pretty easy to be attacked by bandits on that Silk Road. Again, this is also if you'll learn more about when you get into 7th grade, but I'm just introducing them to you today. So the Silk Road was extremely important in its creation towards the in the Han Dynasty, which was towards the end of those major dynasties that we studied in the politics section. It is what really led to the growth that we saw in China. Now, this video, I'm not going to play it here because it's too difficult. You can't hear it, but I will link it on the, what's it called? The checklist. I will link it on the checklist so you can watch it if you would like to. You don't have to, totally optional, but I want to make sure I give you that option. We're going to stop here. We will pick up with social structure tomorrow. So for your homework tonight, make sure you do the Silk Road article and questions. Ms. Hurlis recorded herself reading the article and questions. So if you would like to listen to her read it, you absolutely can. That option is there for you. Otherwise, you can go ahead and read through it and answer the questions on your own. Good luck, guys.